Hey there, Slingers. Welcome to another Wordslinger podcast. Thanks for tuning in. And we've got a great guest for you today. I'm talking to Dale Roberts. He's a self-publishing guru with his own YouTube presence. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, plus some other seemingly related things. You're going to love it. So stick around.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
This segment of the Wordslinger podcast is being brought to you by me. Now, if you'd like to support me and my work, this podcast, whatever else I'm doing, you can do that best by going and buying one of my books or a whole bunch of my books. Go to kevintomlinson.com/books, where you'll find an entire library of things waiting for you to discover. Go find your next new favorite read, and you'll be helping me out, which means I can continue to help you out. Well, I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. I'm glad that you're here. I was watching this thing recently about online voices or internet voices. Actually, it was like social media or TikTok voices. That's what it was. Apparently, there's a TikTok accent. And the guy who was talking about that also went into various other types of online accents. And one of the things he talked about was how there's hand gestures. If you're watching this video, I've got a lot of hand gestures. I tend to talk with my hands. But there's specific hand gestures where they cup their hands and point down, and there's little things. And I don't think I have the sort of rhythm he's talking about with, because there's a rhythm to TikTok videos. There's a rhythm to those gamer videos. So I'd be real curious to find out what sort of internet accent that I have. I think it's a mumbling sort of accent. But the thing is, though, I came in from radio years ago. When I started doing this show, that's the approach I took, was let's talk to the audience the same way I talked to the audience when I was in radio. And so that's where I've taken my approach to the whole thing. But I'm curious. Let me know if you are, if you've been a listener for a while, how do I stack up against other forms of, other YouTubers? I don't do TikTok, but how do I stack up against TikTok? That sort of thing. I'm curious. I want to know this show is very, this show has evolved into the format it has over the years. And I don't know, I'd like to hear some feedback. But speaking of shows and YouTubers and accents maybe, I have a great guest for you today. Dale Roberts has become a really good friend of mine over the years. It's interesting because I met him around the time that I was starting at Draft to Digital. And in fact, I'd been doing the Wordslinger podcast for a while at that point. Wordslinger podcast has been sort of my gateway into all sorts of things over the years. But I think I can't remember who appeared on what show first. I think he may have interviewed me, and we struck up a kind of friendship and relationship at that point. And then when as soon as I had an opportunity, I brought him on. Wordslinger podcast. I brought him on when we had the show for Draft to Digital. As soon as we had a show, I brought him on. We've had a lot of conversations over the years. I've been on his show multiple times, and as a indie author insider for the most part, but he has always been very gracious in allowing me to just sort of range and roam. And in this interview, that's exactly what we've done. We talk about self-publishing so much, I thought, why not have a much more casual conversation, let you know who the two of us are. We kind of get to know each other a little better in this conversation. We learn some things about each other. Is this helpful to you as a writer or entrepreneur or creative? Maybe, or maybe not. I can't say for sure. You'll have to let me know. But my goal with the show is to connect with people, find the story, find the real story, the underlying story, and present that. So that's what we're doing here today. So I hope you enjoy this chat I had with my good friend Dale Roberts. Stick around, and I'll chat with you some more on the other side. You know, there's not a lot of people that that when I think back on everything I've done in this career, in the Wordslinger podcast rather, and all the other things I've done over the past few years, not a lot of people that I think are more emblematic of the energy, the industry, the things that we're doing here in the indie publishing space than my good friend Dale Roberts. Hey, Dale.
That's me. That's me. It was hard for
That
you to
is
kind of
you.
start that one out, wasn't it?
I had a little stumble there. The emotion got to me.
Yeah.
Took me over, but
The
here we
struggle's
are,
real,
man.
man. It's this isn't an easy thing. I think a lot of people will watch it and go, "Oh," like there's so many
They're gonna
times I'll
feel it.
get comments on videos where they're like, "You meant to say, no, I didn't. I
Oh,
decided I was just going to go ahead and stammer my way through it and make up a
that's it.
bunch of words in the process."
That's it. Criticize me all you like. That is fine by me.
Yeah, exactly.
In the words of Ron Swanson, I know what I'm about, son. So,
Yeah.
man, Dale, you and I go back, man. I don't even
Yeah.
know how long at this point, but I
I
remember
believe it
pretty
goes
early
back to
days with your
about
channel.
Yeah, 2016 to 2017 was when you and I had crossed paths because I actually am in the midst of writing a book, or actually I've already written the book called Networking for Authors, and you're one of the featured stories that goes into
Oh,
there talking about online, networking.
what a
And
way
you
to
and I got to
guarantee
meet.
I'll buy it.
What's that?
I said, what a way to guarantee that I'll buy the book is
Yeah, yeah,
to feature
exactly,
me.
exactly. Well, I'm gonna hook you up anyways. But yeah, no, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, I think it was 2017 because I'd already had some traction on my YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Because in 2016 I was just kind of playing around with it. I really wasn't taking it seriously. I was putting up a bunch of really crappy videos, and some of them I tried to go to like this dark humor comedy aspect of things, and
yeah,
it was missing the mark by a million miles. A lot of people are like, I don't get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's what you do, right? I mean, you experiment, you try
Yeah.
things to see what's going to hit. Yeah, so yeah, around that time, like I started at Drafted Digital in 2016. And I
Okay.
remember doing your show at one point, and you did
Yep.
my show at one point, and we did. I think we've been back and forth since then a handful of times.
Gold jacket status for
That's
sure.
it. That's it. Gold jacket status. Yeah. And we learned from each other too, man. There's
Yeah.
things that I think we sort of exchanged ideas sort of early on that became the roots of what both of us do. So that's good. That's a if put that in your book, in your networking book,
Yeah. There
it's
you
the
go.
benefit. Let's talk
Well,
about
we've had,
networking.
it's so crazy because I think about you a lot in the aspect that you are a master networker. Like you got me connected
Appreciate that.
to two very awesome people right off the top of my head is Johnny Andrews and Brian Meeks.
Yeah,
Two very great people. And those guys have been, gosh, great
yeah,
friends, and also just excellent business professionals. Anytime I want a candid, honest response for them,
yeah,
from somebody, I go to them. Like Johnny, he'll never mince words. He'll just tell me exactly as it
yeah,
should be. Same
yeah.
thing with Meeks. Love them to death.
Yeah, yeah. Those are both great guys. I haven't talked to Johnny in a while, but I need to circle up with him. Meeks and I kind of go back and forth on Facebook every now and then. So
Yeah.
I like that guy because one of the things he did that always was impressive to me and was part of an inspiration for me and Kara getting on the road full time when we did. But
Really?
yeah, he kind of chucked it all and decided like he and I were at an author conference in Austin. Before it was called Smarter Artist Summit, it was called the Colonist Summit. He was sitting in with Johnny, Sean, and Dave from the Self Publishing Podcast. We were there together with a handful of others, and he immediately after that got on the road full time. and just traveled in his car. And he went and moved to Vegas at one point, and lived in Vegas for a while.
Yeah,
Uh,
he did it on a dime too, as well.
yeah,
It was the wildest thing. It was
he's
like
like,
he's
I'm
living
free.
here, and then he's like, I'm in Vegas now. And I'm like, what do you people do that? They just
Yeah,
decide they're gonna live somewhere?
yeah. So apparently they do. And he did. And so I took that as inspiration, man. Yeah. He's a good
He
guy.
ended up bailing on Vegas, I think, because COVID. The whole lockdown came, and he was like, "What's the point of me being in Vegas?" And I think he
Right.
ended up going back home.
Yeah. You know, my wife and I, that was by accident that we got on the road right as COVID was kind of breaking. They told everybody to lock down. Like literally the day that they announced that you should sort of shelter in place, we had handed our keys over for an apartment we were renting. And because we had already sold our house and, we'd already bought an RV, we traded that for like this camper. And eventually we would trade that for the van just a couple of months after. But yeah, we got on the road right as COVID was happening. So you cannot social distance more than we did because we were in the middle of like Wyoming and Montana and South Dakota. I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere all the time. So
What's that like for you being in a relationship, obviously, in such tight quarters? Because I mean, there's no escaping your wife. There's no like free time.
yeah,
And I know you're probably going to say, "Oh, we've got just that strong of a relationship," but there's got to be something more to it.
every day I thought about divorcing Kara. No, I'm going to be honest with you. It was not hard to do. Karen,
Really?
somehow we fight like cats and dogs. Sometimes we can get really, really acidic with each other at
Yeah.
times. But the thing about our relationship is, I guess you could call this strong, but I mean, the thing about our marriage is it can weather anything. And we saw that
Okay.
from the very beginning because there was a point just before we got married, like 6 months before we got married, there was a hurricane hitting Houston, and we had already seen what happened with Katrina not too long before that. And so the whole city of Houston decides to evacuate, right? And we're on the road, and what would have only taken about 30 to 45 minutes drive took us 10 hours in a
Oh,
in my little car with our two cats. Uh we we just found ourselves stuck together. And then, we were supposed to be going to Dallas, which was like a 10-hour drive away. We only made it as far as Conroe, which is only like 45 minutes away. And so we ended up staying with her parents for like 4 days with no power. No, we're in this condominium they owned that hung over the lake. No power, nowhere to go, nothing to do. And by the time it was all done, we realized like if we can get through all that, and I love her parents. Don't let me give you the wrong impression here. Like they're amazing
yeah.
people.
That's good.
If you're gonna be stuck with anybody, be stuck with them. But yeah,
Yeah.
after that, it was just sort of yeah, we can get through that. We can get through anything. And we have, man. So
I'll bet now that you guys have some room and some space between each other, I'm sure it's probably much more comfortable for the both of you. Do you
I
ever consider
spend
going back to it?
yeah, sometimes we think about it. Now Kara, I think she's very okay with never doing that again. It was done.
I can't say blame her.
Yeah, yeah. But I spend 99% of my time in this space that you see me in here. Right. This office is where I live now. And so we see each other, we hang out, we have lunch together every day. We but most of our day we spend doing our own thing. And then on weekends we'll go take road trips or whatever. So I think we're healthy. I don't know. I don't know. What about you? You you're married,
Yeah, I
right?
am. I am
I
actually.
I
This will
never
be
assumed because
14 years now.
I know that there's a significant other in your life, but I don't assume marriage anymore because people can be weird. But so 14 years, you and your wife.
14 years we've been together. We've been married for 12 of those years. Yeah,
Okay.
she's fantastic. Yeah, you probably vaguely remember, but at 20 books, I introduced you to
Yeah.
her to you in the hallway. Actually, it
Okay.
was on the way out of Bally's at that time. We were talking to Mark Leslie,
Hmm.
and you just happened to pop up, and I was like, "Pardon me, Mark." I was like, "Kevin's coming along," and I wanted to
Yeah, yeah,
introduce you to Kelly at that time. But yeah, we did. I think the reason why I asked you what was that challenge like traveling so long with your wife, we did 2 weeks before,
yeah,
and we got on the road. Thankfully, no cats, none of that stuff that we needed to worry about. We carried like a fridge in our car, like
yeah.
it looked like a cooler, but
Hmm.
it's considered a fridge. And we just kept it fully stocked. And, I'm not gonna say it was a perfect trip by any stretch. We had our challenges, like
Yeah,
anytime we get derailed through detours or something else, or like traffic jams and such, it would be challenging, but I don't think there was ever a point where we argued or got very angry at each other.
yeah,
Maybe just a little bit disgruntled, but
yeah,
usually we just kind of shrug that type of stuff off. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I'm in a relationship with a beautiful woman who's very smart and sometimes understanding, because she does know that, my brain's riddled with ADHD. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
she's like,
Is
who am I
she
speaking to today?
is she in the room with you right now? Is that
No, she is outside of the room, actually. I don't know if she can even hear me out there, but
yeah.
no, no,
You
we,
know,
we we get along really, really well. I'm very fortunate to be with somebody that I truly love.
yeah,
You hear so many times where some people are like the old lady or my
yeah.
old battle axe. I'm like, I don't say that at all. She's like my
No,
best friend. Why would I call her a battle axe or an quote unquote old lady?
yeah, yeah. No, that's the right way. Actually, you know what the secret to a strong marriage is?
I'm waiting for it. You're smiling, man.
The secret to a strong marriage is divorce. It is. Here it is. Divorce. Divorce yourself of expectations and demands, and you will have a strong marriage.
Oh, look at that. Giving sage wisdom as per usual. Wow. So
Yeah.
how many years have you and your wife been together? And this is including like,
Uh,
courting.
well, the number is nearly identical because
Really?
we only we knew each other and dated for about 6 months before we got married, and so that hurricane event that I was talking about, that was like
Yeah.
early on. Like we'd only been dating maybe 2 months when I proposed, and
Oh man.
maybe 3 months. But so we've been married 18 years as of this past January. So we're working on 19 now. So
Oh
so
my gosh.
couple of decades, man.
Now, are you held to remembering when the anniversary was of your first date? Does she expect you to
Yes.
remember that stuff or do you not?
Yeah, our first date was March 27th of 2005. So yeah, I guess if I do the actual math, that was actually quite a bit more than 2 months or 6 months or whatever. Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
so it's close, almost closer to a year now that I think about it. So because we were married in January of 2006.
Yeah.
So have I got that right? I do have that right. January January 8th, 2006. That's our anniversary. So yeah. So March 27th of the previous year was when we first met because it
Yeah.
was Easter. That was Easter that year. And the whole thing
Gotcha.
was this, man. She tricked me, or she tried to trick me. She was trying to test me. And she says, because we met on I bought her on eHarmony, paid top dollar on eHarmony. But we had courted via email for a while, and then uh we never talked on the phone because she wouldn't do that for some reason. That was almost a deal breaker because I'm like,
Really?
how do I know you're actually a woman, or whatever.
Yeah. You
And
were
then
you were like, hey, am I being catfished?
that's what I was worried about. That's the kind of thing I was worried about. Also,
Yeah.
you want to know that you can communicate with each other, right?
Yeah.
So her whole test was, um, we'll meet for the first time at church. We're going to go to an Easter Sunday service. And I guess she was trying to see if that would throw me off. And it did not, because first of all, I'm a Christian. I'm a very dedicated to God. So I had no problem with that aspect of it. And
Yeah.
also, I'm lame. I don't really do well with dating. And so taking a girl to church was actually, for most of my young life, was the date.
Yeah.
Honest. So like we met at a Starbucks across the street from Second Baptist Church in Houston. And then
Yeah.
we wandered over to the service. And then we've been together ever since. So
So it was an ideal scenario. Probably the other would be like a library or something.
or something. Yeah. Bookstore or something like that. Yeah. 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 How did you and your wife meet?
We actually, this was when I was doing personal training. And I
Okay.
was working at a chain gym no longer around. It was called Lifestyle Family Fitness. And she was a client of one of my best buddies. And we just crossed paths. I was scared of her. Like, honestly, she has such an intense, like, demeanor to her when she goes into the gym. It's almost like she sets her mind to purpose, and anything that comes along is a distraction.
Yeah.
She still carries that look to her when she comes in, where it's just like, take no prisoners,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, it was at one point or another that I had been working for months straight, not taking a single day off, doing my personal training. My boss forced me. It's like, you're going to take weekends off from now on. You have no choice.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so fishing for some type of compliments, I go onto Facebook and I say, what's a single guy to do on his first weekend off? And I'll tell you what, I got a lot of takers.
Yeah.
I had a lot of very interested people, and my wife was one of the people that DM'd me and was like, "Hey, I'd be up for hanging out. What you thinking?" And I decided I'd take her on a shoe buying date. We'd go out and buy me some shoes,
All right.
and yeah, fate would have it that I ended up going to pick up some. It was the day before I was supposed to meet up with her. I was supposed to go pick up somebody in a town nearby. We were going to go on a date. It was probably like our third or fourth date with this person, but we weren't feeling it. And I think the two of us just kept wanting to get together and do this,
Yeah.
like, let's see if this works, that type of a thing. But she ended up calling off like partway to me getting over towards her house.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm like, well, screw her, one of those type deals. And I ended up going up to Dave and Buster's, grabbed myself a couple of drinks, and I ended up texting my wife, Kelly, and was like, hey, what are you up to? And just so happened that she was free and available and only about like a half mile down the road from where I was at. And we ended up getting together, and the rest is history. I ended up calling off a bunch of dates after I ended up having my date with her. She was just fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's been great ever since. And here's the beauty of it. It was on April the 2nd of 2010.
Okay.
And the reason why I can remember that is because I proposed her 1 year later, and then I married her 1 year later. And I did it purposely because I spent so many years in the healthcare industry with senior citizens with dementia.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that was really tough to watch was a lot of the things that they forget. And so to me, I was like, I never want to be able to forget those important dates.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, we're just going to do it at April 2nd. I know it's super selfish, but she loved the idea. She was like, this is fantastic. She didn't have any choice on being proposed on the same day.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
I gave her the choice, could we get married? And she thought it was wonderful, and we ended up doing it on the beach. It was just a fantastic thing. And
I'm glad
I
to hear
never
that
knew I'd
worked
find
out.
myself here because we went from personal training
Yeah.
to pro wrestling to, healthcare industry work to now full-time YouTube content creator and writer.
Yeah. Yeah. What an interesting, twisted journey, Dale.
Yeah, it's a very weird path. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody could have predicted it.
Yeah.
I knew early on I was going to be successful at something,
Yeah.
but I think above all, I'm glad I'm successful with somebody that I truly enjoy this journey with. That
Yeah.
and she also appreciates that too, that I'm discovering myself. And I think even right now, she's trying to discover herself. She's trying to find what she wants to be when
Yeah.
she grows up. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are probably sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, is he dating a teenager or something? No. My wife's in her
No.
40s and she's still just trying to find what she wants to do, who she wants to be, and
And that
what's that
changes
path.
era to era, man. I
Yeah.
mean, We all do things. I did, the work that I was doing in my 20s was very different than my 30s and very different than my 40s and 50s. So, it's we get to pick. I mean, we get to decide what we'll be when maybe we shouldn't say grow up. Maybe it's just grow on or something. But
There you go.
yeah, we get to see that. You've speaking of your YouTube channel, like what I've never asked you is like,
Mhm,
how did you end up? Because you're doing your show in the indie author space.
mhm.
Why? Why the indie author space? Like, what got you there? And if you're going to do a YouTube channel, like that seems like the one of the least lucrative ones I can think of, just because it's such a narrow audience. But
It
what got you
is.
there?
It is. I it was by accident. I ended up landing a couple of interviews because I ended up having some really great breakthrough success in early 2016 with my fitness brand.
Yeah,
And so I got onto these YouTube channels, and what ended up happening was I got contacted by a bunch of authors that wanted to know, like, hey, what's the secret? What's the blueprint? What's all that? And me, I'm just doing my thing. I'm
yeah,
just trying to do my thing. And so rather than answering a bunch of DMs and messages and emails and all that type of stuff, I figured, let me answer through video. So
mm,
that way, if somebody else asks this same question, I just send them over to a video.
yeah,
Um, and I internally I felt like, oh, this YouTube game is going to be pretty easy. All I need to do is just publish a few videos, and I'm going to make a lot of money. Yeah, that wasn't true. It was, and as you say, it's a rather niche
yeah,
it's a rather niche audience.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know that not everybody's going to, it's not going to resonate with them, not like a Mr. Beast video
Right.
or something, I see myself as being, you know, I'm not going to make any qualms about it. Not everybody's going to dig what I'm putting out there. But I think it was after about a year and it was going into 2017, I think mid 2017, when I got frustrated, and I don't know why. I just got frustrated that YouTube wasn't working. And I finally just took a step back, took some inventory, and said, okay, why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of it? And how do I need to get to that point? And I literally just went and I uploaded one video a day for 114 days straight,
Wow.
and it was answering every question possible. And if I didn't know the answer, I would sit down and, like I do today, I would sit down and do a deep dive research and try to
Yeah.
figure it out for myself and then try to present that information. That 114 days straight ended up pushing me past like 1,000 subscribers. It was crazy, but I also was able to get some distance and go, okay, I got 114 different assets. I know what's working and I know what's not working. So now let's fine tune some of the stuff that is working and just get rid of the stuff that's not working. So
Yeah.
the comedy videos, trying to be funny, like I was just like, let's just cut that out. Sure, I can infuse my personality into something like this. And if comedy comes about it, yeah, but let's not force it. It's not like I'm freaking Joe Rogan or, Bill Burr.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, no one's looking for content about writing and self-publishing with a funny edge to it.
Yeah.
So that really helped out. It led me to this point, and I love this business. I enjoy studying every facet of it and trying to understand the nuances to it and trying to see it from other people's perspectives is the biggest challenge, because there are some people that see it really difficult and then there's other people that see it really easy. It's trying to find a way to address both of those audience in best a way possible that I don't lose both.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do that. You pull that off. That's what's great about you, Dale. Is that you're out serving, which is, as you know, that's always been one of my things is
Yeah.
serving this community and helping this community. I'm kind of at a point now where I'm getting a little burnt out on that side of the business, but
I
but it's
think
a
everybody goes through those cycles because
yeah,
you know Joanna Penn. I
yeah,
mean, gosh, I talked to her for the first time about a year and a half ago,
yeah,
and I wanted to bring her on to talk about self-publishing, and she was like, "Nah, I'm good."
yeah,
Although she said it in a very nicer, more diplomatic way, but she essentially was just like, "I'm just kind of tired of talking about it." Was essentially her take home. She
yeah,
was like, "I'm happy to talk to you about the craft of writing or even like some futuristic principles and such." But she's
yeah,
like, "Yeah, I've already kind of said everything that needs to be said about publishing." Because you just get to that point where it's like, do I have to talk about this again?
yeah, yeah. She's going to be on an upcoming Wordslinger podcast, and she's
Oh,
I pitched a couple of ideas for like what we could talk about, and she shot everything down and said, "Let's talk about writing thrillers because that's what we both do." I'm like,
yeah,
God bless you, Joe. So let's do that. Because she's right. I mean, there comes a point. See, and you're out there and you're a fresh voice in this still.
yeah,
So I think you've got play for days, right? But
yeah,
there comes a point where you've said everything important that you have in you to say. I mean, what more advice am I going to be able to give to the indie author world that I don't have recorded in a thousand different podcasts,
yep,
um, out there? So, um, I you and I have talked we talked about this off air, but I mean, I absolutely love this community and have
mhm,
bled for this community. But there does come a point where I've contributed as much as I'm able to contribute. So, the great thing about the Wordslinger podcast has been bringing in voices from outside the publishing industry to so that because that's where we learn, man. It's like talking to people who aren't just strictly about self-publishing or strictly
yeah.
about publishing at all. That's where we're learning all the new tricks. So anyway,
Yeah, getting
uh,
outside that bubble really does make a
yeah,
huge difference. And it was a big reason why, for so many years, I was going to video creator conferences as opposed
yep,
to writing and self-publishing conferences, because I felt like I've always been in that bubble of self-publishing, and I just
right,
don't know what was outside of that space. And so the video creator conferences was just a huge help, and especially for my growth in the whole space of YouTube and understanding video and how to put it together that is compelling that people can pay attention to it. I'm very fortunate that I've got a single mind. I've got a very singular vision, and I don't foresee I'll burn out on talking about publishing for a while
yeah,
because I still get up every day super excited. I can't tell you how many times when you were working with Drafted Digital and you would give me a little bit of insider info, and I'd be like, "Oh, yes." And
yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that really pumps me up. And a lot of people
yeah.
are like, "Gosh, this guy." No, I'm really literally energetic and enthusiastic about it. I'm super
That's
passionate
good.
about it.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
anytime I get that inside info, like it's really cool. Even if like it's, just coming out at right at the same time. I know there was some times where you're like, I wish I could have got this to you sooner, but
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes your hands are tied. We
yeah,
have there'd be rules. A lot of it would be like if we were doing something with Apple, for example, like, yeah, you can't say a word. You almost can't say anything at all ever. Like there were certain things that we did with Apple. Man, that company. Now that I'm no longer with Draft Digital, I could spill some tea, but you know, Apple's weird, man. I like everybody that I worked with at Apple, but
yeah,
they have this secret culture, this like, you know, it's keeping their all their ideas in a vault, and to the point where I think they hurt themselves sometimes. Like that, Apple Books could overcome Amazon Books in a day if they were willing to talk about themselves. So,
agreed.
but whatever,
I have seen some of that weirdness about Apple where it's
yeah,
just like they will allow you to like they did like a live video
yeah,
for the Alliance of Independent Authors, but no one could record anything.
right,
No one could be able to speak about those things outside of there. So it almost felt like you were part of like some
yeah,
some special club.
yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, I'm sure it probably feels really good to kind of get that out though, because you've probably been I've been able to say it so many years.
I still haven't said things. I'm a vault myself, man. I got it all locked down.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I'm glad to in a sense, it is like it's good that you're there and that you are so passionate and excited about it. I feel makes me feel better about pulling back a little, because
Yeah.
it means that I'm not leaving anybody behind or anything. There's still an avenue for people to learn and grow in this business.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I'm useless or pointless at this point or anything. I just think that there's I want to focus on my own writing. I want to focus on my
Yeah.
own fiction and my own books, and so that's where I am now. But
It
so
requires such a huge sacrifice.
yeah,
It was something you and I had discussed prior to us hitting the record was, I'm sitting on about 8 nonfiction books right now.
yeah,
And I'm finally just getting myself set down and just actually doing the work because the problem is I get sponsors, I get
yep, yep,
obligations I need to do. I've got to put out a video this week. I need to put out this post. And the problem is I really want to sit down and spend my time fiction writing.
yeah,
And I can't begin to do that if I have all this other stuff to kind of maintain and manage. And it does become a little bit overwhelming. And it was so funny. I'd shared it with somebody. It might have been on a live stream where I shared that. And they were like, dude, we appreciate you putting some of that stuff on the back burner because what you're doing is helping out so many more people.
yeah,
And so that's typically what gets me going. But I think there will come a point where I'm done doing the nonfiction books. I'll continue to do YouTube, love it to death, but I don't know that, good Lord, how many books do I need to put out about self-publishing, to be honest with you? Because I mean, I've already got 5
yeah,
titles out about self-publishing. You
yeah,
put in another 8 titles on top of that. I mean, enough's enough.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a ceiling on the
For
on the
sure.
amount of information that you can possibly share. But
Yeah.
until you hit that ceiling, man, I know you're going to continue to rise. I'm excited to see where you're going with the show and with what you're doing. Happy to hear that that it's doing well and providing for you, man. That's an
Yeah.
accomplishment. So
Yeah.
congratulations on that.
We're only about a little over 5,000 subscribers away from hitting the milestone of 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, which that'll give me a nice
Excellent.
little silver play button
Yeah.
among the
Yeah.
elite, the
The
0.1% of YouTube.
Yeah, the silver play button, man. I'm nowhere near. Yeah, I think they'd give me like something on balsa wood or something at this point. I'm
Yes,
400.
yes, exactly.
Oh,
So that's the 100 subscriber
yeah,
play
yeah.
button.
Here's
Balsawood.
an origami folded napkin that we saved from lunch. We drew the
Yes.
YouTube logo on it in rough ink. All right, man. Well, we're gonna have to wrap up. I promised you I wouldn't keep you too long. You got other
Yeah.
things to get to, more important than the Wordslinger podcast. But I appreciate you, man. I always have. I'm glad that we've remained in contact. Hope we continue to be so. Hopefully I don't make myself irrelevant to you going forward. Well,
I got your phone number, man. You ain't going anywhere.
all right. Hey, tell everybody where they can find you and your show and everything else. Where's the easiest place?
The best way to do it is just go on YouTube and type up Dale L. Roberts. That's it. Dale L as in Lewis Roberts. And you'll be able to find all of my content that way. Otherwise, I'm everywhere. I'm
Okay.
ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous. And now we have an episode title. I'll put links to everything in the show notes. So fear not, dear listener and or viewer. So that's going to wrap us up. Dale, thanks again for being on the show, man. I always appreciate it. I'm really grateful for you.
Hey, thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being a part of the show. Without you, it would just be 2 guys yakking at each other with no real point in the world. But stick around because I am absolutely positive I say something pithy and witty and wise on the other side of this. So stick around for that. We'll see you next time. Well, as promised, here is some pithy, witty, wise stuff for you to come out on. I hope you enjoyed that chat with Dale, because I did. I always do. He's a wonderful guy. He's doing incredible work for the writer community. What he's built with his YouTube channel is so impressive to me. I'm starting to think I don't really have the heart to do full on YouTube stuff. I'm a writer. That's what I am. That's where I come in this game. I'm not, for years I've tried to do other things. I've had other, aspects of my career, working in marketing, working in, the self-publishing industry itself. Those things have been really handy for me, really useful for me. They've helped me grow in a lot of ways. And I met a lot of the goals that I had. I extended my reach. I got out there. I became known in that circle. It was never quite what I wanted it to be frank about it. And, I've had conversations, particularly with Ernie Dempsey, about sort of conquering the YouTube space, because I think that's something he wants to do. And he's, I think, well on his way. I've talked to a lot, if you follow the show at all over the years, I've got a lot of friends who are successful YouTubers, in various sort of corners of that. Like I've got van lifer friends in like Joe and Kate Russo, for example, and others. It's been interesting to watch their journeys, because I always felt inadequate because I wasn't doing the things that they were doing. I just didn't feel motivated to. I tried lots of times to sort of pick that torch up and run with it, but it wasn't right for me. And it's sort of recently that I've been discovering, I don't know, what I'm learning about myself is I am first and foremost the writer. That's what I am. I write good stories, good works. That's part of a whole mission statement I have. The work that I'm doing, I can sometimes be stressed about it to the point where I don't want to do it. And I'm sharing this because I feel like there's others like me. You're probably like me. You may be like me in that there's this thing that you want to do. You want to do it full time. And then maybe once you get to it, if you haven't gotten to it yet, take heart. It's hard work, but it's worth the journey. I wish I could guarantee that it's going to happen for you, but maybe it doesn't. But you shouldn't feel inadequate. You shouldn't feel that there's something wrong with you if you're not where you think you should be. That's the sort of thing I'm learning. That's what I learned about YouTube and that sort of thing. What I'm learning is I'm sort of stealing some pages out of Charles Bukowski's book, many books actually. But if you're not familiar with Bukowski, he was a German-American writer and poet. He really didn't start having any success. He'd been writing most of his life, but he didn't have any actual notable success until he turned 50. And at that point, he kind of took off and became sort of iconic, sort of a baseline for American writing, for writing in general. But I mean, he was living in LA and writing about this, environment he was in, and it was a very, grungy kind of writing. He was like the Kurt Cobain of his era, but in writing. Anyway, he has this motto that is actually etched in his headstone, and he says, "Don't try." And there's an entire poem he wrote, "So You Want to Be a Writer," and you should, if you can find that on YouTube, and you look for that on YouTube and give it a listen. I don't have it memorized. I couldn't quote it for you, but the gist here was, if this stuff isn't just bursting out of you, if being a writer isn't like a flame within you that's just burning out of control, don't do it. And if you're dreading the work of it so much so that it causes you physical pain, don't do it. But if you think you have something to say, if you are willing to wait out the sort of dark night of the soul and do the work anyway, if you can't imagine not doing the work, if not doing the work causes you more pain than the effort it takes to do it, then you're on the right track. That's a brief, very poor summary of the poem, but the gist here is, when he says don't try, his philosophy is that anything that you are meant to do, anything that you are so passionate about nothing could stop you, that's not going to feel like effort to you. Even when you are sweating it out and bleeding for it. And, because, writers, man, we'll torture ourselves with this stuff. It's more than just work. I mean, it's a whip at our back sometimes, and it can be painful to do this. It can be painful to sit and stare into that abyss of the blank page every day and craft something, wrench something out of the nothing that's out there and make it exist. It can take a toll on you, but it won't feel like work when it's all said and done, because you don't have a choice in it. My wife says that writing is the air that I breathe, and she's right. It's when I don't write is when I feel like I don't matter. And it can get dark. So you may be feeling that. I hope you're not, but you might. But if this is something that, as he puts it, you got into for fortune or fame, or you wanted to attract, members of the opposite sex, if that's the kind of thing you got into it for, don't do it. And instead, go find the thing that ignites the passion within you that makes work feel effortless. That's what you want to focus on. That's not meant to discourage you from writing, but it is meant to make you stop and consider why you're doing it. I know a lot of writers who make a lot of money doing what they do. A lot of times when I talk to them, the money is the point. I like money. I like making money. I make decent money from my work, and it's getting better, and I appreciate that. I wish it was much more, much faster. But I have proven to myself over the decades that with or without the money, I'm going to write. And so that tells me I am where I'm meant to be. So I'm hoping that is your reason too. You may not be a writer. I have some people who tune into the podcast who are not writers, but you've got some other work that you do. I would also say that if work is nothing but, drudgery for you and dread, if that's something that you just feel obligated to do rather than empowered to do, what I would urge you to do is put more work into finding something else. Either find a job that you are happy with and passionate about, or find the job or build the job that you are passionate about. Even if it means you're making less money or working even harder for the same money or whatever, I can tell you from personal experience, it is much better to be struggling in work that you adore and work that makes you feel passionate and alive than to be riding easy street, helping someone else accomplish their dreams, helping someone else's bottom line while you are feeling lost and miserable. So all this is much easier said than done, of course, but it is also just as simple as it sounds. So you're gonna have some hard times, but pardon me, but they're worth it. The hard times are worth it when you're running towards that thing that makes you feel alive. So anyway, that's going to do it for this week's Wordslinger podcast. You might hear in my voice, by the way, that I'm a little congested. I've got kind of a weird pressure on my chest. It's starting to kind of make me want to cough now, so this is a good time to wrap things up. I'm sorry for coughing in your ear just now. Apologies. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the show. Make sure you like and subscribe and share, all those things. And we will see you all next time.
Wordslinger.